sunlight. The source of all life on planet Earth. Without it, we would not even exist.
You need about 1,000 IUs of UVB per day. This measures UVB per minute, so if I aim it at the sun and it says one of the healthiest things you can do for your health and well-being has sadly become something that a lot of people fear because of misinformation, and that is going out in the sun. It is so important that avoiding it is not only making people sicker, it's actually killing them. It is one of the most misunderstood health factors in modern life. So it's high time we clear up the misconceptions and set the record straight. Put simply, we need sunlight, or we slowly die. Our bodies cannot function properly without it. In fact, it's one of the best medicines for the 3 biggest killers in the modern world: heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. I'll list all the things it does to our body in a minute, but let me run through as many of the main questions that people have right away. The first one being vitamin D in the winter. Sunlight converts 7-dehydrocholesterol found in our skin into vitamin D, which influences hundreds of genes and systems throughout the body. It helps create strong bones, it builds muscle, reduces falls and frailty as we get older. It activates T cells in our immune system. It helps fight infections. It helps reduces inflammation. It helps blood pressure, hypertension, heart disease, depression, brain function, mood, insulin sensitivity, hormone signaling, gene expression, and aging skin. Yes, believe it or not, despite what people think, sunlight actually helps prevent aging skin in healthy people. Notice I said healthy people. More on that in a minute. But back to vitamin D. As you know, we don't get a lot of it in the winter. Is this a mistake of nature? What's up with that? I'll get to that in a minute. Yes, nowadays, people in the modern world basically don't get much or any vitamin D in the winter. That does not mean everybody everywhere, like here in Las Vegas, for example, or anywhere in the South. Yes, we get enough. How can you tell? Well, you can get a UV meter like this, or this one. These are cheap and small. You need about 1,000 IUs of UVB per day. This measures UVB per minute, so if I aim it at the sun and it says 50, 1,000 divided by 50 means I need about 20 minutes of sun. If it says 10, I would need 100 minutes of sun. Right now I'm in Vegas, the middle of winter, it's 10 a.m., and the sun says 21, so that means I need about 50 minutes of sun to get my daily dose of D3 under these conditions. Now, that's based on a typical light-skinned person exposing 10% of their skin, which means your face and both arms, like I'm doing. Obviously, if you took your shirt off or exposed your legs, then you need less time. This one even says vitamin D3 meter on it. It says it right on it. I'll put a link down below if you want to get one of these. Generally, anyone below 40 degrees latitude who goes outside enough in the winter is fine. But what about people up north, higher than that? Can't you just take vitamin D pills? What about tanning booths? Well, UVB rays are needed for the skin to produce vitamin D, and tanning beds are 99% UVA, almost zero UVB. UVA darkens the skin by oxidizing melanin. That's how they work. Tanning beds don't have any UVB because those are the rays that cause sunburn, and they don't want to get liability issues. So some of the older tanning beds might have some UVB. You can use one of these meters to measure the tanning beds. A clear day here in Vegas in the middle of winter delivers more vitamin D producing UVB than a tanning booth. Okay, so what about vitamin D pills? Well, swallowing vitamin D is not the same as getting it outdoors through your skin. The process of UVB converting 7-dehydrocholesterol into D3 is a self-regulating process, so the skin does not overproduce D3, and it slowly releases into circulation. D3 pills, on the other hand, which are synthetic or animal-derived, are converted in the liver without any regulation and is rapidly absorbed throughout the body with no braking system. And without proper signaling, too much vitamin D can raise calcium levels in the blood, leading to stuff like hardening of the arteries, while ironically weakening bone density. So just because you have a lot of calcium doesn't mean it's going to your bones. Anyway, sunlight gives you far more than just vitamin D pills ever could. It produces nitric oxide, which lowers blood pressure and it improves vascular function. Sunlight trains your melatonin rhythm and circadian rhythms for better sleep, which rebalances and helps create hormones. It raises endorphins for better mood. It modulates your immune system. It helps your food digest. It helps muscles and hormones and menopause and hair growth. You name it. Vitamin D pills can't do any of that. Studies have shown that getting sunlight whenever possible lowers all-cause mortality. That's all forms of death. Better cardiovascular heart health and lower autoimmune risk, even if the test numbers are the same between people who get sun versus those who just took the pills. The health outcome is not the same, not even close. Now, many of you think you're getting lots of vitamin D if you're up north on a clear sunny day and the sun is blindingly bright, bouncing off the snow, and you're getting blinded by all this sunlight. Yeah, sunlight reflecting off the snow can double the amount of sun hitting you, but that does not mean you're getting vitamin D. Unfortunately, the further north you are, like over 40 degrees latitude, the more the sun hits the atmosphere at an angle where the ozone layer stops all the UVB rays, and ozone absorbs UVB much more efficiently than UVA. So you can get tan, but not get vitamin D. So staying outside longer won't help if there's no UVB in those rays. So you may wonder, how could nature in all its wisdom design us to become deficient like this in the wintertime? That doesn't sound right. Well, what's not right is the way we are living nowadays. You see, way back when we were living in nature, we were outside a lot more. We weren't inside on the couch scrolling social media, eating pizza leftovers and guzzling coffee. We were outside getting lots of sunlight for 2/3 of the year. And what was happening during all this outdoor time was the body was storing vitamin D, just like squirrels store nuts for the winter. Vitamin D is fat soluble and it's stored in the fat in the skeletal muscle. So it's slowly stored throughout the summer and slowly released throughout the winter. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, remember, the body self-regulates vitamin D as it's being created by the sun. Any storage created is a slow, steady process. Guzzling vitamin D pills, on the other hand, bypasses the skin safety system. The D3 goes straight into circulation, and the blood levels can climb unchecked, and calcium increases, leading to possible hypercalcemia, hardened arteries, kidney damage, and heart arrhythmias. This never happens with sunlight. In fact, the opposite happens. Since vitamin D is stored in fat cells, you would think overweight people have lots of vitamin D, right? Well, no, they don't. They can have lots of vitamin D stored in their fat, but they're still deficient because their bodies aren't functioning properly. Obesity is actually a strong risk factor for low vitamin D levels. Even though they have a lot of it, they get no benefit from it. Skinny people, on the other hand, can burn through their vitamin D stores faster, and they can run out sooner in the winter. But a healthy person can realistically store 2 to 4 months of vitamin D. Another thing our ancestors did who lived up north is they ate more fish, which are also high in vitamin D. So all those sugar-addicted fruitarians who moved to the tropics so they could feast on mangoes actually made a wise choice, because they'd be pretty deficient if they lived in Norway in the winter. Now, the problem, though, is that all that orange juice and sugar creates glycation, and that's a bad combination with sunlight, which is why you see fruitarians aging and wrinkling pretty badly. When you see vitamin D pills online, you probably usually see it paired with K2, because high levels of unregulated synthetic vitamin D can cause calcium buildup in the arteries, so they add vitamin K to help keep the calcium under control. But how do you know it is? How do you know that vitamin K is actually working? I highly suggest you don't take calcium pills, especially in the winter. What you need is magnesium, not calcium. And if you live way up north, you don't eat fish, you're indoors all the time, then DK pills can help, but it's not a replacement for the real thing. And taking vitamin D pills is not an excuse to never go outside unless you want circadian rhythms totally messed up. You love having sleeping issues, lacking hormones, worse menopause issues, depression, lung problems, heart problems. You love being constipated and having headaches. You love getting sick a lot, your hair falling out, your muscles and bones are turning into mush, and you're being angry and depressed and miserable all the time. Okay, so it's cold out. Bundle up and get out there anyway. Lack of sunlight also means low vitamin C, which is needed for just about every bodily function. So take lots of the herbal vitamin C, especially in the wintertime. Many people don't know what nitric oxide is or even what it does. Sunlight, especially UVA, the stuff that's bountifully present even up north in the snow, releases nitric oxide stored in the skin. And nitric oxide relaxes blood vessels, it lowers blood pressure, it increases endothelial function, meaning reducing arterial stiffness. It inhibits smooth muscle calcification. This happens independent of vitamin D, so you don't need vitamin D for any of this to happen. So blood pressure normalizes after sun exposure, even up north where there is no vitamin D. If you want a healthy heart, go outside in the winter. It's so much more than just vitamin D. Sun exposure also reduces systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, and it improves the immune system. Inflammation is the primary driver of artery calcification, and the number one reason for inflammation, other than sugar and pastries and alcohol and stress, the number one reason for inflammation, believe it or not, is sitting around on your ass all day. Believe it or not, even if you eat right, sitting and doing nothing is one of the worst things you could possibly do, and is the number one cause of heart disease and hardening arteries. I'll make a video about that soon. Okay, so what do? Well, if you want to live a long, healthy, happy life, I highly suggest you go outside starting right now. And I don't care how cold it is. Get out there. Take at least 3 20-minute walks every day. And during the summer months, load up on the sunlight and vitamin D as much as you can. You only need about 30 minutes a day. Dark-skinned people need a bit more, like 40 to 90 minutes on average. And redheads are a little different. They need less than the average person. They are kind of unique. They burn easily, of course, but they make vitamin D much more efficiently from UV, so they need less UV exposure than the average person, so they don't need as much sun. So don't worry, just get a little bit, just get what you can before you start turning pink, but it's much more efficient with redheads. Anyway, a lot of people think sun causes skin cancer and wrinkles, so they cover up and they avoid it and they slather like SPF 1000 all over their body and they stay indoors. Well, this may surprise you, but chronic sun avoidance increases overall mortality. In other words, all reasons of death. While non-burning sun exposure is actually associated with better cardiovascular, immune, metabolic, and mental health outcomes. In other words, avoiding the sun will kill you much faster. Skin cancer is real, but the danger isn't sun exposure. The 3 biggest factors causing skin cancer are burning, when you go out there and you just burn, chronic inflammation, and avoiding the sun entirely. Believe it or not, that is one of the big causes. One of the things that pushes skin cancer is avoiding the sun completely. Now, as for skin cancer, some of the questions to ask was, did the person smoke? That includes marijuana. Did they drink alcohol? Obviously, that means beer and wine because the skin is the outer layer of the liver. Did they like sugar? Did they do a lot of orange juice and mangoes and pastries and ice cream? Did they like a lot of carbs like bread, pastas, cookies, crackers, and cereal and all that stuff? Because that is insulin resistance, metabolic disorder, glycation, and ultimately cross-linking of proteins on the skin. So when the sun hits unhealthy skin, that's when the trouble starts, and that's really what it comes down to. Those people weren't healthy in the first place. Not all skin cancers are equal. Basal and squamous cell are common and rarely fatal, whereas melanoma is less common and more dangerous, and it's more strongly associated with an unhealthy lifestyle and then going out and burning. Not regular sun exposure. In fact, people who get regular non-burning sun often have lower melanoma risk than people who avoid the sun and then they go out and they burn badly on vacation. The difference between medicine and poison is the dosage. It's all context. What shocks a lot of people is that sun exposure is actually associated with lower all-cause mortality, even with people who get skin cancer. Sunlight gives people better survival rates after cancer diagnosis than people who stay indoors. Sunlight reduces the risk of internal cancers like colon, breast, and prostate. You have those, go out and get sun. And sun is not the main driver of wrinkling like people think it is. The biggest factors are, first and foremost, drum roll, sugar, glycation. High blood sugar and glycation are right up there with smoking, both of which lead to chronic inflammation, which, again, is the main cause of artery plaque. And then there's, of course, bad diet and dehydration and coffee and stress and lack of circulation and repeated burns. Those are the biggest factors for wrinkles. Moderate sun exposure, like 20 to 40 minutes a day, can actually improve skin circulation and collagen production, nitric oxide production, and wound healing. Wrinkles come from damage, not sunlight per se. Avoiding sunlight entirely raises your risk of heart disease and depression and immune problems far more than it lowers skin cancer risk. The goal is regular, non-burning sun exposure, not avoiding it. Sunlight increases serotonin and dopamine for your better mood. It reduces depression and anxiety. It strongly reduces seasonal affective disorder. It melts away stress. It helps you think better. It reduces dementia. It resets your circadian clock. It helps you sleep better. It helps all your hormones, estrogen balance, testosterone levels, thyroid signaling, adrenals, growth hormones, all of it. Sunlight helps your mitochondria, ATP production, that's energy, your metabolism, your weight issues, insulin sensitivity, so it helps diabetics, glucose handling, it reduces calcium buildup, it improves muscle strength. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger found that working out outside at Muscle Beach in the sun helped his muscles grow. Yeah, it improves muscle, so it improves muscle strength, it improves balance, it reduces risk of falling, and increases physical strength and recovery if you have an injury. Oxygen, circulation, anemia, collagen, and so much more. Vitamin D pills don't give you any of that. People with higher sun exposure live longer. Outdoor workers, people who work outdoors, often live longer than indoor workers. You know, humans evolved naked, not clothed. Our ancestors were outdoors every day. They didn't wear sunscreen. They didn't take vitamin D pills. And they lived near the equator first. That's where it all started, the equator. Humans evolved with daily sunlight, and avoiding it causes far more harm than moderate exposure ever did. We are creatures of light. Sunlight makes us feel good, period. The sun is warmth. It is light. It is life. So lighten up and get out there.